When we discussed the selection of our new Chancellor in our nominations committee last year, the committee's view was crystal clear. Our new Chancellor must be someone who is an exemplar of excellence and someone who embodies the values of our university. In the past, we've had 5 outstanding individuals as Chancellor, individuals who have in very different but very effective ways advanced the reputation of the university at key moments in its history. So we sought the views of our staff, students, alumni and friends of the university before deciding who to approach. Parenthetically, it's worth pointing out that university communities are famously known for their spirit of inquiry, shall we say, but also their ability to challenge. But I have to say that achieving consensus about who our new Chancellor might be was a remarkably easy task. Malcolm is currently chairman of NHS England, which has responsibility for holding and investing the NHS budget to secure continual improvement in the quality of health and healthcare for the population of England. He served for 10 years as president and provost of UCL from 2003 to 2013, a role which he describes as quite simply the greatest job in higher education. That is, until now, of course. Prior to his time at UCL, Malcolm had been Pro-Vice-Chancellor at Cambridge, where he also was a professor and head of Department of Land Economy. He is a fellow of Clare College, Cambridge. His past roles have included service as chairman of the Russell Group, chairman of the Local Government Commission for England, chairman of the Agriculture and Environment Biotechnology Commission. He has been a member of the Higher Education Funding Council for England and of the Economic and Social Research Council. He has a strong interest in higher education globally and is currently a member of the University Grants Committee of Hong Kong and chairs its Strategy Committee. He is a member of the International Advisory Council of the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology and a member of the International Council on Global Competitiveness of Russian Universities, which is an advisory council of the Russian Federation. His other current roles include serving as a trustee of Somerset House, as a bencher of Middle Temple, as president of the Council for the Assistance of At-Risk Academics, as a British Business Ambassador, and as 2014 Montgomery Fellow of Dartmouth College in the USA. He is a lifetime honorary member of the Royal Town Planning Institute and of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. And so I think you can appreciate that Sir Malcolm Grant easily satisfies the most stringent test of excellence. But he combines this with great personal warmth and charm. The famously acerbic Guardian journalist Polly Curtis described him as smooth-talking and utterly urbane. He has dedicated his life to public service and promoting the importance of education and research across the globe. Malcolm's reputation for truly effective and considered leadership goes before him. Professor John Sutherland described him as the rarest of birds, that unicorn among university provosts, someone who could work with the government and, when his conscience demanded, stand up against it. In the past few months, Malcolm has already shown keen interest and a desire to understand the university. He's already acting as our advocate in all kinds of invaluable ways. I am utterly confident that in choosing Malcolm as our 6th Chancellor, we have someone who has embraced the interests of our students and staff and of the institution as a whole. I look forward very much to all of you getting to know him and to working with him in the coming years. Today is also about welcoming Robert, Sharon, and Herman into our community, all Malcolm's personal choices to receive honorary degrees. As will be made plain in the coming moments by our presenters, his choices clearly reflect deep thought about that elusive chemistry that enables institutions and individuals to build sustainable relationships, and I am very confident that all three will be regular visitors to our campus. But of course, in order to confer degrees upon these three remarkable individuals, we must first officially inaugurate Malcolm as our Chancellor. And so I would like to invite Malcolm to come forward so I can do just that. Professor Sir Malcolm Grant, on behalf of all members of the university, and with the power vested in me by the University Court, I have great pleasure in inaugurating you as Chancellor of the University of York.
Vice-Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly humbled to have been invited by this distinguished university to serve as your sixth Chancellor, humbled by the extraordinary records of those who have gone before me, and humbled by everything I know about the University of York. So I set about trying to understand what the word Chancellor actually meant. And this is a voyage of some discovery, because it's an expression that's used in a variety of different contexts. It's used in the political context, and when Robert was talking earlier about the Chancellor doing a number of things wrong, I froze for a moment until I realized it was the Chancellor of the Exchequer to whom he was referring, and the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany is somebody else very well known, and I wondered whether my powers were quite as extensive as those of Angela Merkel. And then I turned to the church, and I find the office of Chancellor used in ecclesiastical circles as a person of authority and advice. And then I look at the law, and I see the Lord Chancellor, the Vice-Chancellor of the Chancery Division. This is getting tremendously verbostic in installation and around in corners, but across a variety of different contexts, the office of Chancellor exists, and everyone is different. When we turn to the academic environment, we see that the sole purpose of nomenclature within universities is to confuse people who are outside universities, and very often those within universities. So when I was at UCL for 10 years, I wasn't the Vice-Chancellor, I was the President and Provost of UCL. Now, whenever I go to America, most universities have a president and a provost, separate people, and I have to explain in the age of austerity in the United Kingdom, and not given the extravagance of budgets of American universities, we've had to combine the two into one office. But in America, it's not uncommon to have a president and a provost and a chancellor, not normally a vice-chancellor. I'll come back to that word vice in a moment, but American universities have run riot with the nomenclature that was invented in our own medieval institutions. And so, what is the role of a chancellor in this great university? I believe my role is to do something which is reflective of my own background, because to have appointed a former vice-chancellor to be a chancellor, I think demonstrates the risk-taking characteristics of the University of York, their capacity for bold decisions and for bravery, but also it's almost unprecedented. Chancellors are normally celebrities or members of the royal family, and I'm happy to say that I am neither of those. But what I look forward to doing is working very closely with the Vice-Chancellor. I think that the experience that I've had, I hope, can come in of some value to the University of York, to support the Vice-Chancellor unswervingly for most of the time. But I think there's something else. I think the role of Chancellor can be a hugely liberating role. It's honorific, it's titular. I don't have to do anything, really, for which I take responsibility, but imagine the opportunity to work with students. I've met some of the smartest people in the University of York today, and they're students. to work as an advocate for them, to work as an advocate for the staff of the institution, to work closely with the Vice-Chancellor and his team on understanding how the future of the university is determined and delivered, to understand how funding can be improved, how we can work together in fundraising to deliver the sorts of outcomes that we all want for this great university. I should at this stage like to pay particular tribute to my predecessor, to Greg Dyke. He wasn't royalty, well, not quite, but what a remarkable character. And I have to say, the warmth of support I've had from Greg has been truly remarkable. He has very kindly invited me to his last dinner, his last supper here as Chancellor, but also to a private supper in which he told me a lot about where the underlying truths lay at the University of York. But a man who has been the Director General of the BBC and the Director of the Football Association and has had many other leading roles in public life, who brought to this institution, I thought, a sense of enormous generosity. I don't just mean generosity in a financial sense, although he clearly did do that, but a generosity of spirit and enormous dedication to this university that gave him the chance as an undergraduate to mature into the extraordinary public figure that he became. So please allow me to pay particular tribute to my predecessor. But I want to turn now to understand what are the challenges of universities, and in particular the University of York. In 52 years, this university has achieved an extraordinary amount. We find now the University of York appearing in league tables across the piece and across the disciplines. Other institutions around the world would give a great deal to be able to match what York has achieved in that time. Since I have stood down as a full-time Vice-Chancellor and developed what's laughingly called a portfolio career, I've had wonderful opportunities to go around the world and work with universities and to try to understand how they can achieve the sort of excellence that we see here. I've just spent the last weekend in Vladivostok. Well, why Vladivostok, you may well ask, and so did I. But that's because for 3 years I've worked with the Prime Minister of Russia and the Minister of Education of Russia, along with 3 or 4 international former presidents and current presidents of universities, to try to understand how a great nation like that, which only 30 years ago was one of the preeminent scientific nations of the world, could find itself with over 1,000 universities, none of which appeared in any of the global league tables of universities. And what it is necessary to be done in Russia to try to restore that sense not only of what great universities can do, but that sense of national pride. And it's national pride that is so important, because what it has done is to reintroduce to our political leadership the sheer importance of universities. The sheer importance of universities in training and educating those who will lead our country in the future. The sheer importance of universities in capturing the highest quality of research. The sheer importance of universities in driving that research through from the laboratory to the bedside, to the factory, and into the lives of everybody in our communities. So I was particularly taken this morning with the discussion that I was privileged to be part of from the 7 research champions. And as I said in my closing remarks this morning, how extraordinarily cohesive was the vision for the University of York, that draws together many disciplines across the whole piece under different headings of different areas of ambition and different types of work, and yet a vision that will be absolutely critical for the continued differentiation of the University of York. This has to be a place where we not only set out a stall around interdisciplinarity. Any university, by the way, can set out a stall. Any university can sell on PR and communications. What I am absolutely convinced of is that York can deliver. We need to maintain the momentum, we need to maintain the commitment, but there is a capacity here at York to be in the throes of a revolution, in the way in which we dissolve the 19th century organization of knowledge and create something that's fit for the challenges of the 21st century. It's around, I think, interdisciplinarity, it's around imagination, and it's around inspiration. I would very much like to say a few words about our honorary graduates today. I've been delighted that the court of the university acceded to my nominations and that we've had such an extraordinary group of people today, because they do represent the values, don't they? The values on which I think all of us can see a great university like York wishing to be reflected. One thing I should have said is that two of them are married to each other, and I'm not going to indicate which, but I think Herman has already given the game away by indicating that it's not him. But I'm very humbled by the very generous things that they said about me, and delighted that each of them, and I'm sure I heard this right, each of them said how much they wanted to be involved in the community of the University of York for the future. And I think one of the roles of the Chancellor is to ensure that we provide every opportunity for that to happen. So thank you, all three of you, and congratulations on behalf of everybody. There will be other opportunities over the coming year or two to confer honorary degrees on some others for whom I had the privilege of submitting nominations to the university. But before I close today, I want to say a few words about somebody who isn't here. There is a candidate upon whom the university, on my nomination, agreed to confer an honorary degree. She accepted, and she accepted with enthusiasm. She accepted because she wished to not only join the community of the University of York, but to come and participate in a masterclass today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Lisa Jardine. She died on Sunday at the age of 71 from a recurrence of the breast cancer that she had initially contracted in 2005. She was a very close friend, not only personally, but also of academe. She extraordinarily represented the multi and interdisciplinarity that we've been talking about in this university. She started reading mathematics at Cambridge. She went on to read English. She wrote extensively across the discipline. She was a biographer of Robert Hooke. She worked closely with the Royal Society. She worked closely with the British Academy. She was unusual in the extent of her intellectual imagination and inspiration, and above all, her human warmth. So, nothing would have given me greater pleasure had she been with us today, but she's not. I wished to ensure that publicly it was known that she was one of our nominees for an honorary degree. Ladies and gentlemen, a ceremony like this is not something that simply creates itself. It's brought about through an enormous amount of work by many people. So in reiterating my thanks to the university and to the university court for nominating me for the chancellorship, I'd like to couple that with thanks to everybody who has made this ceremony possible. To pay particular tribute to the orchestra and to Grace and Georgie, who's, well, just carried me away. Such purity of singing was just absolutely beautiful. And to everybody who is in the audience today, I can't say that my wife Chris, who's here with me, or I could have anticipated so warm a welcome. We look forward to working with you all over the coming years. Thank you.